All right. Anyway, we got to shift gears totally because I am I am drunk with books ridiculousness and I need a detox or something. I got to get on a 12-step program to get off of this absolute ridiculousness. So we got to go to something that hopefully he's more sensible about. What is your video game of the year?
All right. Okay, full disclosure, I haven't played Spider-Man.
Mm,
Um
yeah,
I
that
haven't
that does take out a candidate.
yeah, I haven't played Spider-Man or God of War. So
That's
it,
two big candidates.
right. And I'm saving them for when I get into them. For the people who don't know, I work for Marvel Comics, and before Spider-Man came out, I'd been working on Spider-Man. I actually needed a little Spider-Man break. I wasn't
Mm,
going to be into it. I wanted to save it up for because of what I do with my job. Sometimes I'll play video games based on what I'm working on.
mhm.
So if I'm working on a space thing, I might play more Destiny or dig up Mass Effect or something like that to inspire me. And because I knew Spider-Man was excellent, I had to hold it off for the next time I had to work on Spider-Man or something similar to Spider-Man.
Mhm.
So that was on purpose to like not mess with that game. So of the top games that came out this year, what I would really be comparing would be Call of Duty Black Ops, um, NBA 2K, and Red Dead Redemption. Those are like the big new ones. Now, I think overall, as far as single player games go, I've never seen anything as layered in a sandbox as Red Dead.
Mhm.
Like when you go to the feeling of entering a world, I'll actually bring up Far Cry 5 too. That was a good game this year.
Mhm.
I like Far Cry 5 a lot more than a lot of other people did. Co-op
Yeah.
experience with my brother was great. But overall, Red Dead was like the most excellent thing. You know, graphics, acting, the overall action. We talked about how it could really feel like a Wild West shootout. I took the auto aim off, so the aiming actually brought more dynamics into it rather than the lock on because you can choose exactly where you want to shoot. Just everything. The way you take care of your horses, the way you take care of yourself, your camp, story, whole 9 yards. If I had to vote for like a website, I would probably vote for Red Dead. But on a personal level, my favorite game this year has been a surprise to me, which was actually the Forsaken release for Destiny.
Mm,
They made so I was a big Destiny 1 fan, even though I knew it was a very flawed game,
mhm.
but the shooting was so excellent that and so subtle with the shooting mechanics from gun to gun. That was just easy to get into it. And player versus environment was like the only thing I'd played ever that was like genuinely hard.
Mhm.
We had to get a whole bunch of people to really coordinate and all that stuff and blah blah blah. Destiny 2 when it first came out, art was beautiful, music was awesome, game was not very good. Mediocre in every way. Everything was more tame. This was an example of a company working month after month after month figuring out the problems in their game. I'm so shocked at how much better Destiny 2 Forsaken expansion is with all the updates leading up to this point. Really, really, really enjoying that game. The artwork is just so much great art in that game. The shooting feels as good as it's ever felt. I play on PC for that game. That is probably overall my favorite experience this year. Although all of the games that I mentioned, I had a good time with. Had a good time with Black Ops, good time with 2K, best 2K in a long time. Uh, good time with Far Cry 5, and all that other stuff. But yeah, that would be my number one. Oh,
Yeah. I do think not playing Spider-Man definitely probably is something that could be a factor. I don't know that it would change what you're saying. I don't think you'll find many people that have anything negative to say about Spider-Man. I
yeah.
don't I actually can't remember hearing anybody say anything bad
The
about
only thing I heard negative about the Spider-Man thing was the Mary Jane missions. A lot of people didn't enjoy having to like do that and not be Spider-Man for a while.
it. Yeah.
And the other thing is, had I played Spider-Man, understand that as a comic book a guy, like forget the fact that I'm a comic book artist, but just a guy who's grown up with that stuff, I might be heavily biased. And it'd be very hard for me to judge Spider-Man based on the fact that I based most of my life on getting the opportunity to work on something like Spider-Man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's a hard. It would be hard to be objective.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that. I can definitely imagine that. For me, I think it comes down to God of War, Red Dead, Spider-Man, and Hitman.
Oh, really?
Hitman, dude, is like really, really good. It's clearly, in my opinion, one of the. Oh, I'm sorry, and Call of Duty Black Ops 4.
Yeah.
Um, it is in my.
What system you play COD on?
I played on PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, we have to talk after the show, man.
I only play free for all.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, and you know what I realized last night why I'm addicted to free for all. It's because I don't like depending on other people
Mm-hmm.
to um to affect my gaming experience,
I
right?
totally agree with that.
But I like playing with other people, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to have like when you're playing a team thing, somebody else can mess with your experience because they won't cooperate. But in free for all, I'm playing with other people, but we all have the same objective. Everybody's trying to kill the other person. So there's no cooperation really needed except for what is automatically going to happen, which is you're going to try to shoot and win. And if you don't try to shoot and win, it doesn't matter because everybody will just kill you. And then it's just whatever. So it doesn't matter. There is not the only thing you can cheat to do or whatever or mess it up is if you got some sort of modded controller or something goofy like that. But whatever outside of that, it's what it is. So I realized that last night. That's why that's my mode
Mm-hmm.
because the team stuff, and I think that's also why I don't tend to lean towards pro-am and park in 2K because other people can affect your experience very much. You know, you can get on and you can be the greatest player. I mean, just look at the guys complaining about the 2K Combine right now. It's the epitome of that particular argument. It's like, hey, I'm an elite level player. This guy or girl isn't. They're messing up my experience. You know, but if they were all playing a 32 or a 21, it wouldn't matter. It's just like, okay, y'all suck, and I'm gonna beat all of y'all. So it is what it is. You know, so that's just for me. But those are my my nominees, I would say. And I would have to go with Red Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the reason the Red Dead gets an edge over Call of Duty for one reason only. Um, for what Call of Duty does, they do it better than everybody else, right? The gameplay is so super smooth.
Really tight.
It is just
Plays
immaculate.
almost like a PC game. Like, to be
Yeah, I
honest
mean,
with you.
it's
feels
straight
great.
immaculate. It's just
Yep.
fantastic, right?
Sounds amazing. Like the gun.
Sound, everything. Like visually, it's not quite on the level of Battlefield, but it's still really, really, really good. So
And
it doesn't matter.
can I jump on that?
Yeah.
Battlefield exchanges visual fidelity for
Yes.
visual consistency and performance.
Yes.
Call of Duty says, you know what? We're gonna dial back the bells and whistles, but what we give you, we're giving you 100%.
Yes.
You're not gonna drop frames. You're not
Nah.
gonna be popping in.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always going to be the experience that we promise you. And I think that gaming overall has moved on from back in like 2003.
Mhm.
A PC rig was all about graphics.
Yeah.
Now it's about performance.
Yes.
144 frames per second is much more important than 4K.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think Call of Duty wins that debate. So I would actually say Call of Duty has better graphical performance than Battlefield, even though it doesn't have better graphical fidelity.
Exactly. No, I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. But my only gripe with Call of Duty is that there isn't a single player campaign.
I hate that because I love the fact that they always gave us a Michael Bay movie to play.
Yes. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything, oh my God, because everybody knows the longevity of Call of Duty is in the multiplayer. Everybody knows that, right? But I think that they did not give us a complete product because they chose to focus everything on their battle royale mode, or everything on their zombies, and everything
Which, to
on
their
their all that.
credit,
Yeah.
the battle royale is my personal favorite battle royale. I don't like that mode in general because I play shooting games to shoot people, not to hide from them. But as far as those modes go, that feels more like hunting other players down than it does feel like hiding from them. Now, this is in fours. What I've heard that is if you play single player, there's just everybody creeping around waiting for everybody else to kill each other. But in fours, it feels like strike teams hunting down other strike teams, which is an awesome feeling.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, you brought up a great point about Call of Duty being the excellent version of what it is. And when we say game of the year, I think you have to give it to something like Red Dead that's basically excellent in 9 out of 10 categories that you could possibly have, right? So you have to give that your vote. But I think there's something to be said for a game like COD or UFC.
Oh, yes.
UFC 3 gave me 100% of the UFC MMA experience I was looking for. I would probably give that game a 7.5 or an 8 if I was judging it for other people against the history of gaming.
Yes.
But for me, it was a 10 basically.
Yes. Yeah. And
I enjoyed it. Really probably a 9 because of the character creation could be a little better, but
yeah. I think that's really important to understand.
Yeah.
Because games can be more valuable to different people for different reasons, right? And I've thought about this in the past, right? You know, because I write reviews partially for a living, and I thought about giving more than one score,
right?
You know, and I thought about giving a score for a hardcore fan and kind of having it differentiate depending on like what it is, right? So say for instance, I'm reviewing an NHL game, right? So I give the casual sports fan, the casual NHL fans rating, and then I give the hardcore NHL fans rating, you know, and in that way, you know where you fit, and and I give reasoning as to why I gave it a 7. If you're a hardcore guy, if you're a casual guy, you get a 9 because you're not looking for as much. You're not going to be as, you know, stringent on in your review. So I've thought about that before, and I think that's really important because for some people, like for UFC 3, it pretty much gives me, like, I would have liked a little bit better career mode. It's much better than it was in the last version, but it still gets pretty preposterous late in your career.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, really, I'm fighting. This is my 6th fight against him. Like, like this just wouldn't happen. You know, but but it's better than it was. But as far as the get online, have a ranked match, I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. They've done as good a job with the grappling as can be. Like it is. I'm actually writing up a sports video game of the year, a series of those articles, and I am going to make sure that EA UFC 3 gets its due because it is often the forgotten sports video game in the whole thing. And another thing that it's done is it should win. If there's an award to be, and I'm going to create this award, best post-release support. I mean, there is no DLC, pay DLC. There's no season pass. There's none of that. But they add more fighters and more. I mean, dude, they're adding freaking moves, steel.
Yeah.
Like they're they're not charging anybody for the fighters. They're not doing none of that. It's just constantly, like a week ago, they just added Dan Severn.
Man.
They added Chael Sonnen. And then they added two guys from Fight Night Champion. They added Andre Bishop and Isaac Frost, which I think is actually laying the groundwork for them bringing boxing back. But that's just my personal opinion. But this is what I mean, and this just happened like a week ago. So it's insane what they're doing. But I would still have to say that my game of the year is Red Dead. It's just such a complete game. And that's to me, that's the biggest, that's the pushing point, because no matter how you want to play this game, there's an above average experience in every aspect.
And that's the thing, like as a so to discuss Red Dead in the context of what we've said before. Red Dead says, come into the world of the Wild West and get a story. For the most part, it is not just excellent at that, but it is good at that in ways that if you imagine that in your own head, you wouldn't have imagined as well as they did. Right? So that is the literal definition of above and beyond. However, when I'm shooting a gun or a bow and arrow, it's not as satisfying as it is in other games with guns and bows and arrows. You ever play a violent shooting game and you shoot somebody right in their deserving face and you go, that was cold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Far Cry, very underrated shooting mechanics. The thing with shooting mechanics is most games outside of Bungie and Call of Duty feel significantly worse. I played Far Cry. I was very surprised pleasantly. It almost felt like their history of having all these games came together in this game, right? So the driving is better than it's supposed to be because they have all these driving games now. The swinging mechanic is better than it's supposed to be because they have rappelling in Rainbow Six. The shooting's better than it's supposed to be because of Rainbow Six. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have access to all these systems, and maybe, I don't know if their resource sharing is on point, but it just felt like, man, this is like super polished. The whole thing is, it sold me, go in with a co-op partner, go into this weird reality where where American terrorists have taken over these super religious people. They all deserve to die. Shoot them in the face. And then when I shot him in the face, it was really satisfying. Red Dead, it feels like the shooting is the least satisfying part of the game.
Yeah.
But it's a Western.
Yeah. So it kind of gets away with it.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing.
It created its own margin for error.
And it shouldn't. Like, shooting somebody with a revolver in Destiny and watching their head pop off is amazing. Yeah. You know, there's just a snap to it that just feels really good. In Red Dead, it's the most forgettable part of the experience, but the game is so excellent in every other way that it almost has to be game of the year. But for me personally, I'm having an experience where I'm saying this is great, but when I play UFC, there was no this is great, but
you know what it is.
Fantasy world for 5 straight days of playing that game. You know what I'm saying?
You know what it is. It's like watching, like, so say for instance, right? You look at the movies that are generally nominated for Best Picture, right? Yeah. And you look at it, you're like, oh, it's Out of Africa, or you know, or whatever.
Moonlight and
you know, you look at a movie, whatever's on, and you look at it from an artistic standpoint. You go, oh, that was, you know, and I'm talking about if you're a well-schooled movie critic that knows how to look at cinematography, knows how to look at, you know, everything, right? And you're like, oh, that was really done. Oh, I see what they did there. That was something different, technically different and artistic that they did with that shot. And it's subtle, but you know how to appreciate that, right? But then you sit down and watch another movie that doesn't do nearly as much from an innovative standpoint. And maybe even there's a couple components of it that you're like, that wasn't too good. But for whatever reason, you enjoyed that movie more than this one that was so technically beautiful. And I think that in a way, that's kind of how Red Dead is. Like, you look at Red Dead, and Red Dead is so technically awesome in so many different ways, right? But there's a couple things that are like really like dummy, like dummy enjoyment points, right?
Yeah.
That we like in every game. You know, we like to shoot people.
Yes.
You know, we like to run up and punch people and feel the weight and feel the boom. You know, we like the
satisfaction of it,
and that's what gets you to keep doing it. So that's one of the things about like UFC 3 is like when you knock somebody out and you land this huge combination, you're like, oh, because they transfer that energy real.
Yes,
you know? But
you're 100% right.
In Red Dead, the energy isn't always transferred as well as it should be.
I think that's its weakest point. And you make a great point. I remember my first, so when I'm learning the fight system to UFC 3, I didn't play a whole lot of UFC 2, right? I played every UFC game, but UFC 2, I just didn't take to it that much, right? UFC 3, got back into it, really enjoyed it. So, you know, when you first get the system down and you realize where the spacing is, where you can throw punches, what combos actually work, how to defend on the grappling side. So I'm fighting this, you know, guy who wants to take me down real bad. And you know how they are when they want to take you down real bad.
Right.
And I knock him clean out early in the match. I got up out of my chair and ran around the room like I really did it. Like he was really on the ground.
Right.
I'm like Tito Ortiz. Just
you're like,
boom. Hey, I told you not to do that. I do love Red Dead. I don't want to make it sound like I'm only appreciating Red Dead.
Yeah.
That's not the point we're making.
Yeah.
But Red Dead does not give me that emotional, visceral pop from an action standpoint that other games with those same mechanics, like fist fighting and shooting people, have done. And for me, that's important and not something that people talk about a lot. But it's so good at everything else, I still have to give it Game of the Year.
Yeah, it's still the Game of the Year, but it's the Game of the Year, but it may not be your favorite game.
Yeah,
I would say it. That's
very well said.
I think that's probably the way you have to go look at it.
How could I be weak? I'm rather unique.